Everyone needs to be ministered to, even pastors. I was very blessed to be raised in a home that strongly emphasized church involvement, pastoral honor, pastoral respect, and we definitely cooperated with our pastor. Now, decades of water have gone under the bridge since I lived at home with my parents. And at this stage in my life, I have had the privilege to be active in ministry for over 40 years in multiple churches, serving multiple pastors. Those who faithfully minister to many people, giving themselves consistently to teaching and preaching and directing and encouraging. And unless you've been one, you just have no idea what goes into that. Pastors who conduct weddings and funerals and dedicate babies and counsel, and they are people who, when crisis comes, and believe me, crisis comes, they are like law enforcement in a different way. They run toward the crisis and not away from it. Now, unfortunately, the nature of their work, the way they go about it, many times it's so easy to assume that everything's well in their world. They look very well put together. They're usually intelligent, emotionally controlled. Many of them never drag the pressure and the conflict of what they're dealing with that day or in their home to the pulpit. Many pastors seem to have a way of appearing above it all. They usually have good answers. They usually give good direction. They may have a decent to nice to very nice home. They may drive a nice car, could have a good, nice family. And so we see all that, and then it's very easy for us to think, well, what could they possibly need? And that's a very good question. So when we consider our pastor, you consider your pastor, it would be very hard to express the importance and put a value on a holy, righteous, dedicated, consecrated, anointed, disciplined, focused pastor. Now, I'm going to stop right here, and I want to kill the elephant in the room. I am well aware that there are some fakes in the pulpit. I'm well aware there are frauds. If you want to put those two together, you could say charlatans. I got that. I'll even go a step further and say I'm well aware that there have been, and I'm sure now are, wolves in sheep's clothing in the pulpit. I'll go ahead and even go one step deeper, and then this is as deep as I'm going. I'm sure there are predators in the pulpit. And so let's kill that elephant, because this is what I can say. All of those horrible things I mentioned, that's the exception. That's not the rule. I promise you, by far, the majority of pastors truly love God and they love people. I feel, and the ones that I've had and the ones that I'm connected to now, and I'm very blessed in what I do to be connected to many pastors. And I feel that Jeremiah 3:15 explains them well. And I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. So there's a key word that I want us to consider right now in this lesson. And the word is importance. Importance. Just how important is your pastor? Mark 14:27 says, and Jesus saith unto them, all ye shall be offended because of me this night, for it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered. So when I consider the context of this, I'm seeing that the context is smitten shepherds lead to scattered sheep, and scattered sheep are very easy prey. Now, I'm asking you to consider this, and this is not a pleasant thought, but think about it anyway. If you wanted to throw your local congregation or a local church into a time of uncertainty and cause the biggest disruption possible, who would you need to eliminate? Who would you need to affect? Who would need to fall? Well, I think we would all say it would be the pastor of that church. And the reason why is none of us really live with a bigger target on our back from the enemy than the pastor. They are targeted in spiritual warfare. I promise you that. Now, I know if maybe your pastor has only been there a week or 2 weeks or a month and you're in a transition and, okay, there may be some major member of the church that's kind of holding things together through the transition. I get all that. But 95% of the time or 98% of the time, if you want to throw a congregation into a mess, then let the pastor be taken out suddenly. Well, who would be the next member that would be so important that could affect a church? I would say their family, starting with their spouse. Because really nothing distracts a pastor's focus more than a challenging situation at home with their spouse or one of their children. Now, I'm asking you, consider this deeply. Consider all ramifications of this. And don't read too much into what I just said, because I am not speaking of human worship. Worship must be reserved only for King Jesus Christ, and you can put a period behind that, because no human is worthy of worship. I'm not speaking about worship. People worship is idolatry. Our world is full of idolatry, and God knows that we don't need the idolatry of people worship in the church, because what happens at that point is a serious problem starts happening, because then things are out of order, and the consequences that we face whenever we're out of order on that level is serious. But I can say this: honor and respect for our pastor is in order. Now, not only honor and respect, they need that. They need that because of their position, because of how God is using them, but they also need protection. Now, I add protection because I personally think that the role of a pastor is moving closer each year toward being listed as an endangered species. Hear me when I say this. The word is important, and our pastors are very, very important to us in our lives. There is another word that I want us to consider, and that word is human. Human. Pastors are human. One of the greatest ways that we can minister to our pastor is to remember that they are just as human as we are. Consider what was said of King Jesus Christ in Hebrews 4:15. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Now, this is powerful insight. We're talking about King Jesus Christ. We're talking about him being tempted in all points like we were, yet without sin. Then when you look at the fact that he suffered pain, rejection, betrayal, he felt it all. He was hungry. He was tired. He was aggravated. It was just part of it. Jesus Christ knows what we face because he's faced it. He knows what we felt and feel because he did. He knows how we are tempted because that's how he was tempted. He literally dealt with every emotion that we deal with, every challenge we deal with, he's dealt with, and he did it without sinning. So when we consider this about Jesus, we can believe that our pastor is no exception. Our pastor does not get a pass on any of that. Well, you say, okay, well, that's King Jesus. Well, then let's consider Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul in Romans 7:18 through 24, and I know this is a few verses to read here, but Apostle Paul's humanity is put on a billboard in the Bible in these verses. Listen to this. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good, I find not. For the good that I would, I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do. Are you seeing how this is going back and forth? Now, if I do that, I would not. It is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. But I see another law in my members. Is this sounding familiar? I see something working in me that is another law, and here's what it's doing. It's warring against the law of my mind, and it's bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. And then he ends it. You can hear the lamenting in his spirit. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? We want to talk about humanity, the humanity of our pastor. If King Jesus and Apostle Paul face this, you can believe that our pastors face this. Our pastors have inner wars and regrets just like we do. They've been hurt and disappointed just like we have. They have concerns about their future just like we do. They have closer friends due to years of relationship just like we do. They prefer to be with some people over others, just like we do. Pastoral humanity is real. Their spouses and their children are human too. It doesn't matter how gifted they are. Anyone that has heard me teach much in leadership sessions or wherever, I have thrown this in a lot because I do not hide my tremendous concern that I have for women in ministry, especially spouses, female spouses of senior pastors. And so I often use this equation. Undefined plus unrealistic equals frazzled. Terry, what are you saying? I'm saying that this humanity thing is real. So with all this humanity in mind, how should we respond to these humans, these people who are human that are our pastors? Can we just define Luke 6:31? Can we take Luke 6:31 and can we get it in our mind when we're thinking about our human pastor and their family? And as ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise. So it's really simple. As we desire people to treat us, as we desire people to treat our spouse, our children, in our humanity, then that's exactly how we need to be treating our pastors and their families in their humanity. This one verse would be a life changer. It would change lives overnight. They are human, and we need to interact with them accordingly.